Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and I would like to tell you the tale of an Air Force Vietnam POW fighter pilot that I had a chance to fly with. And also, as kind of a little side note here, digression, is a unusual weather phenomenon, unusual to us at the time. It was new to us that we had never encountered before, and was actually quite a dangerous situation. But I'll talk about that later on. Now, I was going out to Edwards to be a chase pilot. I had been a T-37 instructor, and I was going out to be a chase pilot and officer in charge of current operations, the command post out there. And I talk about this, the two previous majors, I was a first lieutenant. The two previous people who had had this position were both fired from it, and I was going to go out there and assume it. Yeah, that's kind of interesting, but I talk about that in another video. But on the way, before I got going out there, they said, hey, we need somebody to attend what's known as the Instrument Pilot Instructor School. Now, when I was a T-37 instructor, they took the 38 guys because you did a lot of 38 flying in the course. I mean, that's all you basically flew. And so they took 38 guys, and it was a very hard slot to get. And here I was just going to go out to Edwards, and they said, hey, by the way, you want to go take this course on your way out, and you can teach the instrument school. And part of it was you were the instrument flight expert, as it were, because they went all sorts of what's known as TERPS criteria, how you design instrument approaches. And it was, I believe, about 6 weeks of a very intense and very interesting course. And you did a lot of backseat flying in the T-38 under the hood. That's what they use to cover the inside of the canopy there, and flying instruments in Category E aircraft. So hey, it was a fun deal. I was excited, and I would teach the instrument school every month, and it helped me actually become get the position of senior flight examiner, wing stand of L out there. But that's a slight digression. Anyway, so hey, I'm going to go to Randolph. That's cool. So we get down there, and my instructor, by the way, slight digression here, my instructor, he later became a pilot for United Airlines like I did. Neither one of us at the time intended on that, but he became a 777 pilot. In fact, the last time I saw him, we were both flying the 777, and we were on our way out to Hawaii. And he actually came up alongside of me in the tracks. He was at a higher altitude alongside of me, and I'm going into Maui, and he turned off to go in to Honolulu. So it was kind of cool. We have a common air frequency. We talked a little bit, and away he went. Okay, I digress. He was my instructor. We're flying the T-38, and just about ready to graduate now. Been through the whole thing, and they decided for some sort of, I guess, see how the course was going. They were going to take one guy out of the course and have him give a check ride to the commander of the Instrument Pilot Instructor School. And I was the guy chosen to give the check ride. It was kind of like a test of, the course, I guess you'd say. Kind of a quality evaluation sort of thing. So I'm going to give this guy a check ride. Well, very interesting guy. We did a little bit of chit chatting, and he had been a POW for 7 years. He had flown the 105. And so we get in the aircraft, the T-38. He's in the back seat. He's going to fly the instrument approaches, and we head on out of Randolph. And we head on down to Kelly Air Force Base, which was just short hop away there around in San Antonio. Beautiful, beautiful city. I love San Antonio. And we get a little bit of time at cruise, so we get a time to kind of start chit-chatting. And he tells me he was a F-105 Thud pilot. And he was on a bombing run, and he ended up getting hit by AAA fire, anti-aircraft fire. And he said it blew the nose off of his F-105. He could look down between his feet by the rudder pedals and see sky. So, the whole nose was gone. And the unfortunate part was parts of the airplane, the nose, the structure that had been hit, went back, went through the engine, and he was losing power. And he was just watching the RPM decrease and decrease and decrease. And the key was you needed to get across Thud Ridge for safety. It was a 5,000 foot ridge, And the deal was you needed to get across this to get into safe territory, get away from the MiGs, get away from the enemy, and have a chance of being rescued. But he was losing power and losing power. He didn't have the altitude, and finally he said he just couldn't make it over the ridge and he had to punch out. Well, he was captured, and he was a prisoner of war for 7 years in the famous Hanoi Hilton. Now, he starts telling me the story. He believe he was a major when he was shot down, and while in his imprisonment, he was promoted to lieutenant colonel. He may have even been a captain. They took care of the POWs by promoting him very well, and the money was sent back home to his wife. Well, that's kind of where the problem began. His wife ended up leaving him. She shacked up, I guess is probably the only good term I can think, with another guy for the 7-year period, spent all his money, and when he came home, they ended up getting a divorce. His money was all gone, and I said, man, that is a bad story. I mean, here he goes through 7 years of being a POW and thinking that he's got a wife back home waiting for him, and she just blows him off. I mean, what a sad tale. And I said, man, you must be bitter. And he goes, no, actually not. He accepted it, and his attitude on life was just amazing. He was a very positive guy, and talk about somebody who's been so. I mean, it was it was just extremely an inspiring tale, and quite interesting. Okay, well, back to the story. Well, we're going around to Kelly Air Force Base. You know, Texas, it gets hot down there. They've got some weather. And we're going into Kelly, and there are these clouds, these very unusual clouds. And I later found out these are called cumulus momentous. Well, these are an indication of very turbulent and very nasty air. You don't want to be near these things. They're near thunderstorms, and there was a thunderstorm near the field. But hey, we are in a T-38. This will climb at 30,000 feet per minute, roll 2 degrees a second. This is a high-performance aircraft. We really don't have to worry about weather too much. And they're calling wind gusts of 40 knots. Well, okay, that's going to give us a bumpy ride, but we're coming on down. And we are really kind of getting the crap kicked out of us. And one interesting thing, because of the location of the weather, Center said, well, we'll cut you in early on the approach. And he says, sure, I'll take that. Well, we ended up coming in high, and okay, we're in a T-38. We're high in a T-38, a lot of capability. He ends up doing a barrel roll to get to lose some altitude on the instrument approach coming in on the ILS. And it's obviously he's kind of behind the aircraft in this whole situation. We're getting the crap kicked out of us. And he actually has to go into min afterburner to keep our airspeed because we're losing it. We did not understand wind shear. I mean, this was back, we're talking back in the 70s, and it was not well understood, especially in the Air Force. I think the airlines were starting to come to copes with it, but we didn't understand it. We didn't know what was going on. We were an high-performance aircraft. How can it hurt us, okay? Yeah. So it was an extremely rough ride. We ended up actually breaking it off and going back to Randolph. And I ended up debriefing him on the ride, and he didn't have the best performance because he got behind on the aircraft. He rushed to do it, and that didn't make his performance as sterling as it should be. And here's a first lieutenant debriefing an LC on why he wasn't such a good pilot, and this guy had been a fighter pilot in Vietnam on the Thud, and so I felt a little bit of intimidation there, but I was doing the debriefing as well as I could and as honestly as I could. And after I got done, he says, okay. He says, that was very accurate. And he says, now here's the thing that you needed to pick up on that you didn't really pick up on and is very important. He says, you knew the type of guy I was, that I was a fighter pilot, and that type of pilot tends to push themselves. And I let myself, because of the cut-in, be pushed to rush the approach. I got behind, I got high. You don't want to barrel roll on an instrument approach under the hood, okay? Um, he says, that's not the way you want to fly an instrument approach. And, you should have debriefed that. Yeah, it ended up okay. We ended up breaking it off because it was getting kind of violent down there in the weather, and we came back home. But, you know, basically, he had taught me the dangers of rushing, which, okay, I'm still a fairly new pilot, and I don't have a lot of experience, and that was a very poignant thing, especially, well, the T-37. It's hard to rush. That's most of my flying. I mean, I flew the T-38 for 100 hours or so as a student, but the T-37, been both the instructor. You can't get rushed in a tweet. It goes so darn slow. You're not getting rushed hardly, but you can get rushed in a 38 because it's a fast aircraft. So it was a good lesson for me, and it was quite an eye-opener experience on what some of the people who were truly heroes went through, and what happened to him. It was just kind of a sad affair, but I mean, he really had a good outlook on life, and it was very inspiring. So that was one of my first encounters with POWs. It certainly wouldn't be my last, especially going out to Edwards and with the pilot cadre out there. But it was a very interesting time and experience, and my growing as a young pilot. So I hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching.